Okay, hello everyone. I'm Tim Elder, the Chief Product Officer at Multiply. I'm very excited to be here today with this panel to cover such an interesting topic, which is we're going to be exploring the impact of generative AI in financial services. And we're going to be looking at where we are today. We've just had a great presentation actually on where we are today, but we're going to quickly revisit that. We're going to talk about what this means for clients today. We're going to be talking about kind of the opportunities and challenges, especially for different types of organizations. And we're going to be talking about which advisors are going to thrive in this type of environment today. So in terms of how the session is going to work, we've got about 40 minutes to run through this. And you would have heard Vivek earlier talk about Slido. So if you see some questions behind me, this is actually a great way to gather questions from everybody as we go through the session, not wait for a Q&A session. So I'd encourage you to go to slido.com, sign on to this code, and then feel free to ask questions throughout the session. And during the session, we'll actually pick up these questions as we go. They can be anonymous, so if you want to ask something really spicy, then feel free to. But I would certainly encourage you to put your name with it, so we can ask you any kind of follow-up questions yourself if there's some point of clarification. So let's introduce the panel. So maybe if we start off on my left with Sam, actually.
Cheers. So I'm Sam Turner, director in our wealth practice at a business called Altus Consulting, which pretty much means that I look after our relationship with larger enterprise clients with financial planning permission. So typically banks, life businesses, larger wealth management businesses, and effectively made a career over talking to advisors about the role of technology in their business. So 10, 15 years ago, that was sort of retail investment platform type stuff. More recently, it's been the role of the enterprise CRM layer, advisor tooling, and big advocate of the robo digital automated advice movement, and a big fan of what the guys at Multiply have been doing over the last few years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Lewis. I'm a director at PwC. I work within our consulting business focused on customer transformation, particularly within the life and pension sector. So most of my time is spent working with teams within the workplace pensions or the retirement space who are interested in building out hybrid advice models, looking at their distribution with IFAs, and really thinking about how to engage with both customers and advisors through accumulation, whether that's in workplace or individual products, and retain them into the decumulation phase of retirement.
Thanks, Jessica. Jason?
Yeah, I'm Jason Butler. One of the benefits of being older, and a lot older than this hip young crowd, is that you actually know quite a lot of people, you know a lot of stuff, and you've had a lot of experience, including what doesn't work. And I had a 25-year career as a financial advisor. In the last 15 years dealing with multimillionaires, and I thought to myself, what's it like to be a multimillionaire? So it must be really, really easy business. But then I realised when you do get rich, everyone wants your money off you. But yeah, in the last 9 years, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I sort of morphed into financial wellbeing in the workplace, literally as a complete fluke. It wasn't my intention. And that really opened my eyes to the whole issue of what people need, normal people, not ultra wealthy, and not people that literally in the last chance saloon, but the mass market. And that's an area of particular interest. And I also volunteer 1 day a week at Citizens Advice. So I see very, very vulnerable people. And that keeps my feet on the ground about what we need to do to avoid people getting into those situations. And I'm a serial fintech investor. I've got 15 holdings that are left. 4 or 5 have blown out. And I've had 2 very, very big exits. And I'm a backer of Multiply AI because he's a very good salesman. And I'm excited about this area. I don't know everything, but I think I can bring some perspectives across both practice, technology, and the commercials. That was a long introduction.
And hello, everybody. I'm Mike. I co-founded Multiply, and my background's on the technology side. I used to be CTO. Chantal was talking about jobs that didn't exist 20 years ago. Well, these days I'm branding myself as Chief AI Officer, which I don't think existed 2 years ago. But really, it's an opportunity for me to think about what AI means for advice, having spent the last 8 years working on Multiply, getting to understand advice, understanding something around how the industry works and what customers need, but also bringing, I guess, my technical background towards that. And yeah, that's my focus these days.
Okay. I'm like a dodgy boy band I sat in these chairs. Why do they always give you the most uncomfortable chairs to sit on? Yeah, I'm going to say you're the Gary Butler. Hi everyone, I'm Craig Barraclough. I run Finnovation. So we're a consultancy really focusing on tech and operations for the advice firms. I spent the last 12 years as CTO at a large advice network. So I've lived and breathed the advice for the last kind of 15 years, I suppose. What I've started doing just recently, starting to help advice businesses demystify AI. You know, there's a lot of noise around AI and what it means for their businesses. So I'm trying to help the businesses be AI ready, understand what that means, get the fundamentals in place so that they can really enhance their businesses through AI.
Great, thanks, Craig. Okay, so let's kick off with the first question, which is just understanding where we are today. So let's get a view of like just what's the latest. And maybe the first question is, what's been the most significant impact that we've seen in general, maybe in our spaces? So maybe if I start actually with Jessica on this point.
So thinking about kind of generative AI in particular, having worked with kind of the bigger life cos, the retail banks, we've noticed that the focus has been really on the customer operations function and on complaints. So they're looking at, the service relationship, not in the advice space, not necessarily in the revenue generation, but just in maintaining the customers. We're now going beyond those kind of initial proofs of concept into scaling, as kind of Chantal spoke about earlier, but really in how you kind of keep the service agents going effectively, how they're monitoring what the customer needs, and to bring regulation into it, kind of maintaining compliance with consumer duty. And I think as much as we've seen regulation perhaps as a hindrance in the relationship with customers in the past, I'm actually quite supportive of consumer duty as a whole. I do think it really does focus on kind of evidencing the right outcomes, and technology is playing a huge role in enabling that. If I look back kind of a year ago, companies were saying, we have everything in place to prove out the 4 outcomes. They're realizing they're not there, and they're using technology. They're using solutions to enable their agents, whether that's more in quality assurance, sentiment analysis, transcription of the calls, but being able to show that they are supporting customers as needed, and really that the customers are able to understand what they're going through with the agent. So I think that's where I've seen the most scale at the moment. But
yeah, I mean, open question to the panel if anyone's seeing any other particular areas.
Yes, I have to go. So I suppose general point, right? So this industry, terrible at adopting technology, and I'm probably not going to be popular for saying it, but it is genuinely the case. But as a general point, we've been really, really encouraged by the level of innovation over the last 5 years around generative AI in particular. So even if, the use cases are pretty dull, right? It's things like trust and corporate case due diligence. So previously, a vice firm has an admin team. When a charity case comes through, a trust case comes through, they've got to trawl through company's house, look at who's a trustee, who's on the board, who are they related to, find out just how corrupt these little charlatans are. That takes someone a week to do, and now it takes 5 seconds to do. That's brilliant, but it's not the sexiest thing in the world. So actually, there are some great point solutions out there that we're seeing that are solving real problems for not only the enterprise scale financial advice businesses, but also sort of Billy back bedroom IFA can benefit from these things. Sort of other examples that we see, and I'll shut up in a sec, but other examples that we see are sort of, the obvious stuff. So taking meeting transcripts, pre-populating file notes, pre-populating suitability lists, the stuff that takes a while for a financial advisor to do, now relatively efficient, and it's really encouraging to see. And then Matthias talked about it earlier, but also the development life cycle. So you can now put together sort of screens, code with relative efficiency. And in a financial services world where integrations should be achievable but just haven't been achieved yet, that's really encouraging. So can you build an integration quicker? Can you curate a more integrated ecosystem?
Great, thanks, Sam. And maybe to the right-hand side here, just a twist on this.
Yeah, I think I would I totally agree with that. I think it depends, the question depends on the focus of the business or the customer. So, for instance, existing advice-driven businesses that are human-heavy, okay, whether they're at the top, middle or bottom of the market or mid-market, I think they are looking at AI in small little cases. How can they be more efficient? So we know that SJP at the moment, there's a great thing on Next Wealth, the recent podcast, where they talk about how they are starting the process of introducing AI models for creating draft advice. And there was pushback to start with, but once the advisor practices, which essentially are the human-centric side of the business, once they realised the efficiencies they got from this, and they could get to more customers or do less work and spend more time on their boat, once they started to get exciting. That's very different from funky new organisations, whether it be a Plum or a neobank or one of these kind of, or another type of a money supermarket or something like that. They are looking to find a way of engaging people with their finances, which is beyond a transaction. And so businesses like Money Means, which has been 2 years testing its initial tool to get people to not just don't even understand open banking, but here's a benefit of how you can use open banking to help you help yourself and get yourself to a position where you're more confident, regardless of whether you need to take advice, whether it's one-off, whether it's ongoing, whether it's heavy duty, whether it's one-off transactional. So I think the focus must be, where is the business now and what is it trying to achieve? A business that's very human-centric, advice-driven business will be looking for mainly initially the efficiency savings and consistency. And there was a question about vulnerable clients. If you can find a way of using your processes to highlight vulnerability, then that's a big tick in the box for consumer duty for existing business, but also neo business. So there will be some areas that are specific to a retail funky front-end business. There'll be some that are for existing advice-driven businesses that are human-oriented, and there'll be some crossovers.
I think Jason's right. I think in with the businesses that I speak to in the kind of mid-size level, I think there is a lot of concern that they're being left behind. Right? There's this type that if you're not using AI now, you're being left behind. And that's just simply not the case. I mean, we saw from the stats that Chantel showed, 50% of businesses are thinking about it and piloting it. But I think there is a lot of confusion around what AI can do for businesses, what AI is, what the tools are capable of. And I think Jason's point is a really good one. With any technology, right, you need to understand what your business wants to be and wants to do. What's the future vision, how you get there, and what the problems are that you need to solve, and then find the right tool for that. And whether AI is the right tool or not, it remains to be seen. But I think that's the problem now. We've got this tool that will do, fantastic things. Anything you want it to do, it will pretty much do. But we think we should be using it, but how and what should we do? But having that business vision and understanding where your business wants to be and what it wants to be known for, the client experience and everything else, you can really then drill down into how you kind of move that forward.
Well, maybe I add a twist on this for Mike, because what I'm hearing from the panel is obviously there's different types of organizations. And we actually have a great top question here about how smaller financial advisory firms can leverage Gen AI to compete with larger institutions. So Mike, maybe you have a view on some of the technology that can be used by them.
Yeah, so I think when we think about automating advice, we basically think about advisors getting involved in things they want to get involved in. And I think typically for smaller financial advisory firms, they pride themselves on the relationship they have with their clients. Those might be very long-term relationships where they've got to know each other over a long number of years. They take care of the whole family. And that's a great example of where actually it's not, you have a long-term client, they may be approaching retirement, they have their kids have just gone through university and they want to get them started in a financial plan. That's not necessarily something that's efficient or economical for a lone IFA to be able to take on. So it's a great example of where automating an advice process for those typically younger clients, kind of incubating them, you might think of, until they get to an older age where they have more assets, they're more viable as a customer. It's a great example of I guess a flexible approach to advice. At the same time, we've talked about some of the back end tasks. things like processing meeting notes, the kind of admin of the job. That too is a great example of things that can be automated. And I guess the promise is that the advisors then spend more time doing the things that they like. So if it's engaging with the clients, if that's your real USP, if that's the thing you really pride yourself on, don't worry. I don't think automation is actually coming to take that away, because if you're right about that being your USP, we don't, that's not what it's going to be better at than you at. But in terms of writing up the meeting notes, processing those things, getting stuff into IntelliFlow or whatever database system you're using, incubating younger clients or less economical ones, these are the kinds of things that I think it can really help with.
I think this is a really good point. Some of the firms I talk to, the guys are worried about, how do I build my own agents? How do I use LLMs? The point is, for most of us, the AI will come to us. The technologists, the multipliers of the world, will bring AI to you in your business. You just need to understand what problems you're trying to solve, and then using that right tool. I'm banging on the point, but it is, I've had conversation with people saying, well, how do I build my own chatbot? How do I do this? How do I do that? You don't need to do that. The technologists will bring that to you. You guys are the strategists. You think about the future of your business, and then the technology will come to you.
Just one point, that's so true. Do you remember years ago, well, you were all young, but when PowerPoint came out, people thought the way you create a talk, and I speak for a living professionally, I know you wouldn't believe it, and what they did was sit down with their PowerPoint, because someone had given them PowerPoint, and they created they created a slide-ument, okay? Death by PowerPoint with the smallest font, and think you've lost the plot. When you're doing a talk, you've got to start with, who is the audience? What is the key message? Where is the takeaway I'm going to give them? Where's the funny, the humor, the high, the low, and then, can I use an image to help me with that? Therefore, should I use Keynote or PowerPoint? So in other words, AI almost is the Keynote, the PowerPoint, what's it called? What's that one that makes you feel sick? Prezi. The one that goes all over the place. Makes you feel like you've been on a bender, doesn't it? And when you're watching it, it's awful. Anyway, but the point I'm making is, AI is the tool. That's it. You've got to start with what your business, where the pain points are. And if you start with both efficiencies to make it cheaper or more accessible, and or make clients feel better. So if you watch a presentation that has a picture that augments what the speaker is saying, you remember the talk much more than that 1,000 font, millions of words slide that was there that no one could see.
Yeah, I think that the other piece I would add here is, the advisor market itself is growing at 1% annually. And there's about 30% of the UK population that will be over 60 within the next 5 years. And so if we look at that, regardless if you're a small advisory firm or if you're one of the largest retail banks building out your mass affluent, hybrid advice offering, everyone is looking at how to scale advice to meet an unmet need in the market. And so I think that there's going to be universal tenets of how to compete, how to provide advice. And realistically, the cost to serve just has to come down, and technology is the way to do it. We kind of have a fixed supply of those available out there, even if we do, follow the traditional model of the older generation advisor serves the older generation investor, and then the younger generation comes in, and maybe it's a bit more basic, no frills, just kind of get them going on wealth management at a young age. Regardless of that, there needs to be technology and enablement. And I think what we're excited to be seeing is the cost of tech is coming down tremendously. So there's still integrations required. There's still going to be the adoption curve for how you actually get humans to want to take this on. But this is kind of something that the whole industry needs to grapple with. And I think that there's a really big opportunity actually for the smaller firms who might not be encumbered by the bureaucracy or the tech spaghetti of a massive organization.
So you're saying real big opportunity for smaller firms to be really agile, move quickly. If it's a big opportunity to reduce the cost to serve. So
just to add that, so I think Jess highlights the real opportunity for me, and that's sort of getting financial advice into the hands of people that otherwise can't afford it under the traditional model, right? So you can But there are a number of challenges related to that. So an IFA can only serve who they can serve under the current model. You can make them more efficient, great. They might be able to serve more people. You can introduce sort of automated advice. You can make that super engagement. But it doesn't talk to the key challenge. And Vivek and I have had this conversation in the past. The lack of awareness and adoption and engagement with financial services in the UK is not down to a lack of technical sophistication. It's down to a lack of giving a shit, right? So you can curate the most perfectly designed digital hybrid advice journey in the market, adheres to all the most foremost behavioral principles going. You roll it out to a load of people and no one signs up, and you quickly realize that nobody cares. So I think the real challenge and the real role for generative AI is to engage those people at the right time. So that might look like personalized marketing comms. So show me everyone who's likely to take out a life insurance policy in the next few months. Show me everyone who's just had a child. Show me everyone who's within retirement age. So you move to a world where rather than just blanket mailing saying, did you know that we have a SIP? Fill out this questionnaire and see what it could do for you. You're engaging people at the right time on a proactive basis, and you're likely to, retrieve better results.
Certainly, yeah, sounds like a challenge. I guess like to kind of go through that theme now on challenges. Is there anything in particular that we think orgs of all sizes need to be really aware of in terms of making this stuff happen and seizing these opportunities?
Yeah, and I'll take that one to start with. And I noticed there's a question up there as to whether we'll see a customer backlash to poorly implemented AI experiences. So, yeah, I think we will, and I think that we've already seen it with basically companies taking the AI tooling and putting a thin layer over what something like OpenAI or even Google provide, and putting it straight out in front of customers, and it goes wrong pretty quickly. The DHL, is a good example where it was composing haikus about how awful DHL's delivery service was to customers on their website within hours of launch. I think the real challenge for a lot of people is you may be used to seeing some of these tech demos, and they get 80% of the way there, and you think, oh, the last 20%, they'll be able to cover that. That will come in the next few years, and it obviously gets you excited about technology. With a lot of the AI tooling that's available out there, we saw earlier how easy it is actually to get set up with some of these things. Actually, that last 20% and thinking about how you manage the risk and how you control what's being put out there, that's kind of where all the magic is. It's much less exciting, it's much less sexy, but actually that's the kind of killer difference. So I think there's a lot of exciting tech demos. There's a lot of interesting things kind of out there, but actually stuff that kind of proves more robust in the real world. I think that's what companies need to be looking for.
And there's also a challenge, right, around how do you govern the output? So in a typical advice business, you can, Barry puts through a flawed case. You can go and check that case. You can look at the transcript. You can look at the meeting notes. You can understand where Barry went wrong. If you're introducing an enterprise solution, there is this idea that you're introducing a systemic risk. And someone was talking to me the other day that was sort of saying, look, this stuff you have to accept that it's 90% accurate, give or take. Is that acceptable? And how do we find the 10%? And how do we trace it back? And how do we highlight flaws? And how do we improve these things? Essentially, all the general enterprise challenges. And the other one is how do you buy this stuff, right? So if I'm a bank, I'm used to shopping for technology solutions that solve me a problem. Now I'm being talked to about a technique, a method, a technology, and it doesn't fit neatly into the procurement approach for these big enterprise clients. So I think there are commercial challenges to adoption, as well as a big challenge around how you govern, how you regulate this stuff.
If I could add too, I think that there's one thing that we do have to be acutely aware of too is some of the bias that comes through in AI and the reinforcement of bias. And PwC is a massive adopter of OpenAI, but even we need to grapple with how do we fundamentally make sure that biases are not reinforced and not just leave it to the tech companies to solve that. So I think that there's a bit of a cultural piece here that needs to be thought about. If individuals are going to be interacting with AI on a daily basis, or they're going to be using that in front of customers, how do we make sure that they're still keeping that very human element of doing the best for the customer, or treating my coworker in the best way possible, and not saying, well, the AI knows best. And I've had that personally happen to me, that I've been corrected by someone in a meeting because they said, actually, I fact-checked you. ChatGPT says otherwise. And I will say that's happened to 2 female coworkers. So these biases, it's what's in the AI, but also what's in the culture of how we are using it within our business, and also how are we thinking about it with our customer segments. Financial advice historically is catered towards the male population, not the female population. We have a massive opportunity to go for what is a very affluent and growing segment, and tooling to enable us to better reach them. But also we have to be aware of the risks if we don't think about, the inherent biases that may be going into the data.
Yeah, and the point I would make is I think there are lots of opportunities to adopt both current and emerging AI tools in things that are not a personal recommendation. So for those of you who are not aware, obviously you have guide or information, generic information, you have guidance, people like you, and then there's personal recommendations. This is what you should do. There's loads we can do with AI tools to engage people that is not a personal recommendation. Now, there's a thing called the advice guidance boundary, and it's been going on for 1,000,000 years. And quite frankly, anyone who comes in as a new government should just get hold of that and just get that sorted. But here's the thing. Imagine I have a pension with Legal & General, only by virtue of a job I do part-time. And I must tell you, for such a large organisation, the stuff that I get, whether it's online or the benefit statements, I cannot begin to tell you, and I've told Bernie Hickman, who's head of retail, who is smoking, whatever they're smoking, who's responsible for this stuff. Because it is not engaging me, and I've been doing this job for 34 years. And when I say to my wife, okay, I'm going to show you 2 things. This is my benefit statement. Look at that. Now I'm going to show you a video of a young lady speaking to me. Hello, Jason. Your pension with Legal & General, it's gone up so-and-so. You've had this amount of contributions. It's gone up by this amount. And there's this amount gone in charges. And if you were to put X amount more in, you'd have a bit more blah, blah, blah. And if you want more of that, and I said to my wife, which do you prefer? She says, well, why are you showing me that statement? What is this? Which is the one you're? I said, well, this is one I've invested in the company that's built this. She goes, well, why would anyone want that? And I said, well, and I checked it on all of her friends, all of my friends, everyone says, well, I want that one. Now, if they then want to look at the statement afterwards or drill into it, they'll drill into it. The point I'm making is there's loads we can do before a personal recommendation to get people to engage, even if it's a few funny little videos, sort of TikTok-y, like, you could say to someone, you could take sort of well-known people and just say, what profile are you? And you've got some that have gone broke. You've got some that are really rich. There's certain stars who hold on to the money there, and there's some that blow it all. So you can make a mixture of entertainment or infotainment with engaging tools that tell people factual information, both generic and personalised to them, and then will inspire them to go on and engage with more modern firms that can serve them with automated advice tools, which is why I've invested in people like Multiplier, because they're trying to, the bit where we get in interpersonal recommendations is then when we're actually helping people do stuff. People don't just want to know generically, they want to know, what do I need to do, and make it easy for me to do it, but make me feel confident and capable that I'm doing the right thing.
Thanks, Jason. And maybe a question for Craig, actually.
I was going to say, I've just got 2 more points.
You go for it.
Well, just going back to the challenges. There's 2 challenges as far as I see. First is data. Okay, as with any tech, data is king. In terms of AI, data is going to be everything. So firms need to understand their data. Okay, and I mean, what data have you got? Where is it held? How is it obtained? How is it used? How is it accessed? How is it secured? How is it leveraged? You need to know all these things before you can start implementing AI properly. Yeah, so if you can't answer some of these questions, you need to be going back and looking at your data and understanding your data. Because, we talk about hyper-personalization and client experience. I ask you a question. You've got a really good relationship with your client. Who sends birthday messages to their clients? Happy birthday messages. Anybody? So, good. That was going to be slightly awkward then, wasn't it?
I want to be reminded of getting older.
So, but imagine what happens in that situation if that date of birth has been keyed in wrong, or it's been formatted in American format, and suddenly you're sending a nice happy birthday message to your client 3 months before it's their birthday. What's that going to do to the relationship? Yeah, so data, I mean, that's just a very simple example, but data's key to all of this. And I think the second point, which I think Chantal was touching on, is is your employees and the hearts and minds piece. AI is not coming for their jobs. AI is coming to help them be a better person and better at their job, enhance them, allow them to add more value to themselves and your company. So bring them on the journey with you, explain what's happening. I think Chantal said, we're not plotting in the boardrooms to replace you. So I think those two challenges, your data and your people, are going to be key when you start looking at AI.
Thanks, Craig. Okay, we're running out of time, so let's talk about financial advisors. Top question here: what skills should financial advisors develop to work effectively with AI technologies? So, do we have any recommendations for advisors?
I think one of the key things is just being open to new technologies and being up for having a play. I think that there's a maybe there's a sense that people who've worked in the industry for a very long time, seen how it works, they get very, very comfortable, and there's a fear from stepping outside that comfort zone. But actually, advisors I've met, and I'm going to call out Peter, who's standing at the back there, who joined us maybe 6 years ago now, having worked a very long time in the finance industry, but is always up for trying new things, isn't kind of afraid of the technology, is kind of open to new stuff. And I think for me, that's characterized by going and having a play on ChatGPT, start asking it some finance questions, have a go on Gemini, have a look at where it goes wrong, where it goes right. I think there's so much we talk about, but actually just having a play yourself, being up for experimenting, will teach you so much more than anything you can read in a blog post.
I would give you this analogy. Wife and I, we had to have some cupboards put into our bedroom, and it was a lot of work. So my wife said, right, we're going to have to move into the spare room, one of the spare rooms, while they do all the work, because they've got to put plugs and everything. So we moved anyway. We were lying in bed one night, and I said, oh my God, who came up with the colour scheme in here? And the bedside cabinet was a bit of the point I'm making is that until I'd stayed in the spare room, I had no idea what our guests were going through, which is why we've got no friends. But the point I'm making is that unless you look at this from your customer's point of view and think, what are they liking? What are they not liking? I mean, for instance, if you're not playing with AI, generative AI, your customers are, your potential customers are, the children of your customers are. And the point I'm making is that why not try and play with it and ask it? There's various plug-in tools you can get now and say, how would I visualize this text-based advice? So take your last suitability letter or report and ask ChatGPT, take out the client details and stuff, and say, please turn this into a highly visual that would work for 90% of the population, whatever, and just see what it can do. So just use the generative AI to stress test what you're already doing and look at it from the client's point of view. And finally, don't be led by compliance first. Be led by client and be curious and be innovative and push the boundaries and then have a fight with compliance.
Thanks, Jason. Just to whip back to kind of recommendations for advisors, I suppose there's this narrative that we hear sometimes around superpowers, giving advisors superpowers, and then some people feeling like they're going to potentially be replaced. So there's these two kind of ideas. Like, how does that play out in your mind, Jessica, maybe?
Yeah, so I think we need to remember some of the reasons that people do go to a financial advisor. We've done some surveying recently across the UK population, and it kind of comes out again and again, not just in our research, that reassurance is a massive factor. We are in an age now, an information age, where a lot of people can find the understanding of what are the different types of products. There is the option to do self-directed investing. But people are going for reassurance, and they're going not just for the retirement decisions. They want support throughout kind of different life stages, different points in time. And so I think if we think about it as, is there a risk to the human advisor being replaced? I don't think so, because that reassurance does really come from speaking with someone that you trust and that you feel is out there for your best interests and is providing a service that maybe you wouldn't have felt as comfortable doing on your own. So where AI really has an opportunity here, and I think it's been kind of talked about throughout today, is maximizing that time spent with an individual to give them reassurance and minimizing the amount of time that's spent, remind me what you do, remind me where you've been at for the past year, remind me what your goals are again. It's taking all of that out and being able to come into a conversation with an individual and they feel like you're as prepared as they are to have this discussion, and that you're kind of able to go even 1 step, 2 steps, or 3 steps further of bringing to them kind of what's the best and the latest, or the best comparison of people like them, how to contextualize their situation, and really just provide that reassurance and confidence that they're making the right decision.
Yeah, it's spot on. Just quickly to add to that, I mean, I love the idea of advisors with superpowers. You imagine it's the most boring comment, but going. So we did a lot with the banks, and actually they found that generative AI is a really useful tool for upskilling advisors. So if you look at the banks, right, they haven't necessarily employed advisors over the last 10, 20 years. They've employed people to sell ISAs, and it's been disguised as advice. They're now looking at getting back into the world of pensions advice, heavily regulated, highly complex. And, you've got a bunch of 20 to 25-year-olds thinking, Christ, I've now got to advise on this stuff. I don't really know what I'm doing here. And generative AI doesn't necessarily have to talk to whole of internet. It can talk to a ring-fenced universe. And that universe might be procedures, policies, house advice documents, so that me, as a 22-year-old ISA salesperson, now having to advise on a pension, I can ask, what does the house say? Given this certain set of inputs, these 5 pensions, guaranteed annuity rates on 2, what should I do here? It gives you a head start, and you can work from there. So,
thanks, Sam. Maybe as a final take, Craig, do you have a view on this?
Yes, probably slightly contrary to the other views. So I agree in the short term that Gen AI is going to empower the advisor, and the advisor will be critical to the advice process. But I think, and I made a prediction, I think I said at the end of this decade, 50% of financial advice will be AI-led. Now, before I get lynched, let me qualify that. AI is going to, as we've said, allow more people to get more advice. And I think that advice will be either AI-generated or AI-led. So there will be a bigger proportion of advice that will then be AI-led. We will still have face-to-face advice, but I think it will be a shrinking proportion. People say to me, well, we want the human touch, we want the trust, we want this. I think as a society, we are changing. The humanity is leaking out of society. Let me ask you another question. Who's got a family WhatsApp group? Yeah, there you go. Do you use that WhatsApp group when you're in the house together? Yeah, there you go. See, we're moving away from talking to humans, and I think yes, money and health and emotive subjects will be the last for it to move away from. But I think we will build trust in AI and systems, potentially through other sectors like healthcare. We'll become more comfortable with the outputs, and I think once AI can demonstrate consistent superior performance and be empathetic to our personalized needs, there will become a tipping point, at which point it's about value. And if I can get the same advice here from an AI model for 500 quid or from an advisor for £2,000, it's just going to be, it's going to become a question of value. Now, look, we're talking about 6 years' time. The pandemic was only 4 years ago. We've said ChatGPT's only been around for 18 months. The pace of change is phenomenal. So at that point, we could all be wearing brain neural links, and we have access to all the financial advice we ever need. Be like the Matrix. Instead of I know kung fu, it'll be I know tax efficient investing. We won't. So, but I do think we are probably complacent if we think that the human touch is going to save the profession. I don't know. I don't know.
We've got a hard stop literally now, so what a great kind of final comment. Thank you so much to everyone. So maybe grab people as they're leaving to kind of wrap this up. But thank you everyone on the panel. That was really, really excellent. And thank you everyone in the audience. So round of applause for.